In today's video, we're going to see how we can use the DHCP protocol to assign IPs automatically to our PCs. In our previous video, we used star topology using the switch as the central device to connect these PCs together. Okay, we assigned IPs to these PCs using the static assignment method by going to the IP configuration and selecting the static option. Uh, so today we're going to see how we can assign these IPs using a DHCP server. For the DHCP server, we will be using a router to give these IPs. So let's just rearrange them. Okay. So for example, this is our rearrangement, and we want to assign IPs to this network, not by static assignment, but with dynamic assignment. Okay. So if we want to do that, how we can do that? We will have to first connect this router. So since these are different devices, so we will be connecting them with a straight cable. So I will connect it at fast Ethernet 0, and as you know from our connections video, that whenever we connect a router, all the ports or all the interfaces on a Cisco router are by default administratively down. So that's why we're seeing these red symbols here. So we will have to configure it, and then it will get communicating. So I'll just place it here. So we will first go to the enable mode and then to the configuration terminal mode. If you don't know about these modes, we will be doing another video later on these nodes, and then in that video we will explain in detail how these modes work in a Cisco CLI or in a Cisco OS, iOS. So don't worry about that. Right now we just have to note down these commands. Okay, so we connected it on our interface FA00. So for example, if we do a question mark here, we can see the commands that can be let me yeah so these are the commands that can be used at this option, and these are the uh, details or descriptions of the commands that can be used. So what we are going to choose is this IP command, because we are doing IP related things. So when you do that, IP address, here you go, second one. So whenever we have to use an interface, we need to have an IP address, and whenever we are using a router with our LAN network, that interface and or specifically the IP address of that interface becomes the default gateway. Okay, because as we know that routers are used to connect different networks together, and in simplest terms, whenever we need to connect to internet, we need to have a router present. So whatever the interface or the IP that is accessible to us, that is connecting our LAN network to the router, that is the default gateway of our LAN network. So we're going to apply IP address, and we are using 192.168.92 series network. So I will be replicating that 192.168.92.1. And why 1? Because it's kind of a default method or a convention that whenever gateway IPs are given, one is the most widely used IP address. Okay, so that's why we're going to give it 92.1, and then the subnet mask, the class C address, and then we will apply the command no shutdown. So as soon as we do that, as you can see in the background, these indicators that were red are now green. So the IP address has been given to the interface, and uh, the interface is up now. So let's configure our DHCP server. So if you do question mark again, you can see there are different commands again. I will maximize it. These are different commands again, and then we will also again go for the IP command, because right now the command that we want is also using the IP. And here you can see the DHCP, configure DHCP server and relay parameters, the description of that. So the command that we are going to use is IP DHCP. I'm using question mark so that you guys know that whenever, if you don't remember a command, you don't have to worry about it. You just have to type question mark in each and every interface mode, and you can get the relevant parameters or the relevant command that can be applied at that certain point. Okay, so here we have to give a pool, okay, a pool name, and this is the exclude address. This will be covered in our later video, how we do that, why we do that, but right now we're going to choose the pool option. So pool, and for example I say new pool. This is only the identification of this pool. Okay, it can be anything, it can be any name that you want to provide that can provide information with respect to the DHCP assignment of the IPs. Okay, it's just a name. So when we do that, we will be entering into the DCP config mode. Okay, here you can see that. So now we are configuring the DHCP mode, and if you give a question mark here, you can see that we can give a default router option, we can give a DNS server, domain name, exit for exiting the node, network, and no one options. Okay, so right now we will be using the network option, the default router option, and the DNS server option. Whenever DHCP is configured, it's a better thing or a better approach to configure the DNS server also, because as you know that whenever we are using name to IP conversions, for example, whenever we are typing the website name and it's converted into the appropriate IP, DNS server is in play. So we will be using these three options right now. So for example, if we use the network keyword, we will give the network from which we want to give IPs. Okay, 168, and the network was 92.0, and the subnet mask. If you want type question mark, it will give you that you have to give the subnet mask. For example, if it's a subnetted network, the subnet mask will be different, but since we are using this base C class network, the subnet mask is the same for all C class IPs. Okay, so first we have given the network from which we want to give IPs to those PCs. The second is setting the default gateway, that would be using the default router. Okay, so default router, and then we will give the IP address of the interface that's connecting our router to our LAN network, and that, if you remember, we did in the first step, and that IP was 92.1. okay, so here we just have to give the IP, a specific IP. We don't have to provide the subnet mask because that was already provided in that interface when we configure the IP address of that interface. Right now we're just pointing the DHCP server towards our default gateway. And the last step is the DNS server, and right now I'm using the Google servers. So this option works in the way that the DNS server is already there, and we're just configuring it in the DHCP. Okay, there are different versions of it. We will also try to do a version in which we can configure a complete DNS server just like this DHCP server on a router, but that will be covered later. So for now we will just provide the Google DNS servers address and then exit. Okay, so after that we just write the configuration, and hopefully if everything worked correctly we can get an IP if we change from static to okay, it didn't work right now, so so if it doesn't work for the first time, you just have to change to static and then again to DHCP, and you can see that we were given the IP 92.10, the subnet mask was already given, the default gate was 92.1, and the DNS server was set to 8.8.8. Okay, so let's do that on all the connected PCs, desktop, and select DHCP configuration and select DHCP, and you can see that these IPs are automatically being given by the router through the DHCP server. So right now the problem that we discussed in a previous video, that if we have 80 PCs rather than 8 PCs, just like in this video, this option can tackle that problem, that we just have to select the DHCP or the automatic assignment option, and our DHCP device, in this case our router, will provide the IPs automatically. So this is the last one, and if we change the DHCP, this is the last one. So for example, if we want to ping, let's check our IP. The current IP is 10 and the last IP was 17. So let's try to ping these new IPs to check if our configuration works. And if you can see, I pinged from the first PC to the last 8th PC, and we can ping that. And since we can ping this, hopefully we can ping other PCs. So let's ping another one. For example, we ping 15. It's also working. So this is how you can use our router as a DHCP server to provide automatic IPs to PCs using a DHCP server. Okay, so that would be all, and stay tuned for our next video. Take care.